Alright guys, welcome back to another podcast on the MMAUnhinged channel, and today obviously we are joined again by Oscar Silva. How's it going?
It's going great. Another great week of fights, and we got another great one coming this weekend.
A Brazilian showdown happening this weekend. Thiago Santos versus Glover Teixeira in the main event of the evening. What an absolute stacked card we got for on that night, top to bottom. Very good fights, and we'll talk about the fights that just happened before we get onto that card. Hall versus Silva, an absolute great night of fights. We saw some incredible knockouts. A lot of finishes happened that night, and we saw a lot of prospects come out. We saw Adrian Yanez. He finished Victor Rodriguez in the first round by KO. You know, he's a really good prospect, and we'll get onto him as we get onto the card. But first fight of the evening, we saw Miles John come back into winning ways after losing his unbeaten streak, and he defeated Kevin Natvidad, you know, by third round KO. And this fight was a really good fight. And before the knockout, it was like a really powerful uppercut from Miles John's, and he was holding. I'm not too sure if you picked this up, but Miles John was actually holding Kevin's glove, and then he knocked him out while he was holding it.
Yeah, I'm not really mad at that because I picked Miles Johns to win. He was controlling the fight before that knockout. He was gonna 100%. He was gonna win on the judges' scorecards, but he landed that clean uppercut, and he almost made him backflip, but he was stance was too low.
I actually forgot about that. As you mentioned, that absolutely crazy. When he got knocked out, Kevin Natvidad looked like he was dead. Honestly, it was crazy.
Yeah, for the lower weight classes, when you see a knockout like that, it's very impressive. You only see that kind of stuff at the higher weight classes.
So Miles John, as I said there, you know, he bounced back after losing his unbeaten professional record and improves to 11-1 in MMA. And Kevin Natvidad unfortunately loses on his debut, and he got a tough test in Miles Johns. You know, a guy who's highly touted in the UFC in the 135-pound division. You know, before coming into the UFC, we knew what he was good, how capable he was, and everyone thought he was going to quite far be a top contender. You know, he got knocked out before the fight against Kevin, and Kevin got a tough test in his debut against Miles John. So I was kind of, you know, expecting him to lose, but you know, either way, he's got a tough test in front of him against, as I said there, Miles John. And unfortunately, that night he did get knocked out in spectacular fashion from Miles John. Moving on to the second fight of the evening. This podcast will go so much quicker than last week's because we got less to talk about. So, second fight of the evening, we saw a UFC returnee, Dustin Jacoby, his first fight in the UFC for, I think it was 9 years, I believe?
Yeah, I believe it might have been in 2013.
Yeah, in 2013, you know, and he had never won in the UFC. I think he was 0-2 or 0-3, I believe.
He was 0-2.
0-2, yeah. And his first fight in the UFC since 2013, as you said there. And, you know, he came back, and we saw how good he is now. He looks rejuvenated. That glory kickboxing background, he looks good as we see how good he is on the feet against Justin Ledet. What are your thoughts on his performance that night?
He looked great. Justin Ledet is a boxer, and Jacoby was a kickboxer, and he showed that kickboxers are better than boxers because they have more tools. They have the legs, and he started kicking those legs, and he started chopping down that tree, and then eventually he broke him, and he got that TKO in the first round. His first win in the UFC, and I think he's in his prime right now. We'll see where he goes from here.
100%. You said there, a boxer versus a kickboxer. Justin Jacoby, a former Glory kickboxer, had some great success in Glory, beating some of the best kickboxers in the world. And Justin Ledet, as you said there, was a boxer. And when it came to MMA, we saw the best martial art prevail in kickboxing. And when it comes against a kickboxer and a boxer, you know, kickboxer, as you said there, has more tools. We'll have the leg kicks. We'll have the clinch game, because in a lot of kickboxing they clinch. So we saw that a lot in there. So yeah, Justin Jacoby, you know, went out there, knocked him out in the first round, and looked very impressive. Got his first win in the UFC under the UFC banner. And he impressed.
Yeah,
Sorry, Karen.
He looked amazing, and I think he's in his prime, and I think he could get ranked someday.
100%. He's a problem in the 205-pound division. You know, he's got that. Obviously, I said there that his kickboxing is high class, high level. You know, there's probably only a few in that division that could probably stand with him. You know, we got the likes of, Francis Ngannou, Stipe Miocic. We're talking about them caliber fighters, and that could probably stand with him on the feet. But we haven't. We need to see how good his takedown defense is nowadays. Compare it was to 2013. Has he been working on his takedown defense throughout the whole years he's not been in MMA?
Yeah, I think if Ledet got on the ground, he probably could have gotten a submission, but Ledet just, Jacoby did not allow that.
Yep, 100%. He, as you said there, did not allow that, did not let him get close, stuck to his range, stuck to his kicks, and started chopping the tree down, as you perfectly put it earlier. And, won the fight, knocked him out, and moved on to 13-5 in MMA, and we saw his first win in the UFC. Moving on, Jason Witt versus Cole Williams. We saw a much better Jason Witt in this fight than we did in his first UFC fight. This is the Jason Witt with a whole camp behind him. And in his first UFC fight, he stepped in at short notice. Didn't really have much time to prepare for his first fight. And he got knocked out against Christian Aguilera, I do believe. And then in his fight, he come up against Cole Williams. He looked better, looked rejuvenated. He had a full camp in front of him. And he looked absolutely incredible, looked in great shape, used his wrestling. We saw how good his wrestling is in this fight. Took him down, finished the fight with an arm triangle. How good was he this night?
Yeah, I had picked the Witt early on, and I was discouraged about that pick once Cole Williams missed weight. But I was proven wrong. He looked like Witt looked like the stronger guy. He lifted him up and slammed him right in front of his corner. And I believe James Krause is his coach, and he gave him all the proper instructions, and he beat him up really bad. He opened him up with a cut, and eventually got that arm triangle submission.
Yeah, I just said there, arm triangle submission choke in round number 2. Looked great as ever. In his first fight, he came in at short notice against Christian Aguilera. Unfortunately, got knocked out in that fight. And then in the second fight, had a full camp behind him and looked incredible.
I believe it might have been a Takashi Sato.
Oh, you might be right. Who did Christian Aguilera fought? Yeah, Takashi Sato, yeah. I've got Christian Aguilera in my head. Who did he fight? I think the guy he fought looked exactly the same as Jason Witt. That's why I keep getting it mixed up. No, Christian Aguilera fought Anthony Ivy in his first fight.
Yes.
I don't know why I got them mixed up, but yeah, that's right. Jason Witt did fight Takashi Sato in his first fight, yeah, and obviously he got knocked out in that fight. The results stayed the same. He still got knocked out, but obviously he came in at short notice. Didn't have a full camp behind him. Didn't have much time to prepare for Takashi Sato. And Takashi Sato is he's a decent fighter in his own right. After knocking out Jason Witt, but Jason Witt looked incredible this night and looked what he could actually do with a full camp. After this fight, we had Sean Strickland versus Jack Marshman. And this fight was absolutely incredible. Sean Strickland looked technical as ever. He looked absolutely brilliant in this fight. Stuck to his jab, stuck to his range, and didn't let Jack Marshman get in close and use his power. Jack Marshman's got power in them hands, and if you let him get close, if he clips you, he can knock you out. But Sean Strickland kept him at range, kept him at bay, used his jab, stuck to his range, circled out, and in the third round was the most interesting round. They started talking to each other while they were fighting, and I think Jack Marshman's corner said, "Come on, Jack," and then he was like, "Yeah, come on, Jack," and it was just absolutely hilarious. That third round was incredible. What do you reckon of Sean Strickland's performance that night?
Yeah, he was talking just as much as he was fighting in that fight. Sean Strickland, he's coming off that long layup after that motorcycle accident, I believe it was, and he's looking pretty decent. I don't think he's necessarily elite. Isn't he coming up a weight class this time around?
Yeah, he couldn't make 170 this fight, so it was 185 pounds.
Yeah. I'd like to see him back in the cage soon. He didn't take much damage, but Marshman got beat up really bad.
Yeah, Marshman did take a lot of damage in that fight. It was the jab. It was the jab of Sean Strickland. Just kept on pumping it at the nose of Jack Marshman. It was taking a lot of damage, and you saw that wear and tear on his nose. He was bleeding. But the third round was so entertaining. If you haven't seen the third round, go watch the third round. It was one of them, one to watch. It was incredible.
Yeah, I recommend it as well.
So after that fight, we saw Adrian Yanez knock out Victor Rodriguez with a head kick in the very first round. How good is Adrian Yanez?
Adrian Yanez did exactly what I expected him to. Remember, if you look at last week's podcast, I said first round KO. That's exactly what happened. I thought he would do it with the hands, but he got that awesome head kick. It was a jaw-dropping knockout. Adrian Yanez is going to be a real problem for these bantamweights coming up.
100%, 135-pound division. Adrian Yanez looking good in a contender series, got a really good knockout, and then in his UFC debut, impressed with another UFC knockout against Victor Rodriguez, who stepped in at short notice. So yeah, Adrian Yanez is a problem, as you said there, problem in the 135-pound division. If the bantamweights are not on notice of Adrian Yanez coming up, they should be now after an impressive performance at UFC Fight Night Hall versus Silva. He looked absolutely incredible. And then moving on, we had Alex Hernandez, against Kritz, or I can't pronounce his name, but you can.
Grutzmacher.
Yeah, there we go. Alex Hernandez versus Kritz Gutzmeyer. How good was he that night?
If it wasn't for Holland fighting a welterweight coming up, this would have been Oscar's lock of the night. But Alexander Hernandez was a huge favorite. He was like minus 540, and he looked like a big favorite that night. He got that awesome finish. It looked like Gutzmacher didn't even belong in there with Hernandez. Hernandez, as I said, he was ranked in UFC's best division. Don't count this guy out against someone like Grutzmacher.
Yeah, 100%. And you said there, he was ranked in the lightweight division, arguably one of the best divisions in the UFC that have at the moment. And in his UFC debut, came out, knocked Benil Dariush and put him straight in up there, put his name up there. And then he fell short with a few losses against Donald Cerrone and Drew Dober. And then he came back against this fight against Chris and, knocked him out in the very first round. Looked as impressive as ever. Looked calm, looked collected. Didn't rush his work. He looked composed and he picked his shots correctly and knocked him out. Looked impressive. And this
Absolutely.
the next one was a bit controversial. Bobby Green versus Thiago Moises. Who won?
I believe Bobby Green did. That third round, I think, really made the difference. I think it was even heading into the third round. It was around a piece, and I think Thiago Moises' takedown may have been enough for the judges, but in my opinion, it wasn't. I remember in the second round they showed the numbers for the significant strikes, and it really wasn't that close. And I was like, Bobby Green is clearly doing more damage, and Thiago Moises was this close to submitting him, but he was able to escape it. I was very impressed that he was able to escape those submissions.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you looked at good that night, Bobby Green. Unfortunately, judges didn't think he did enough that night. But he escaped the submission attempts, as you said there, against Thiago Moises, who's no joke on the ground. He's a really good, credible BJJ Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler. He's probably one of the best. I can't remember. He's probably a BJJ black belt, but I can't remember.
Absolutely, yeah, he is. Yeah,
he's probably
submitted.
He's submitted Michael Johnson in his last
Yep,
fight.
in his last fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Bobby Green says he wants to fight in December. But did he break his hand? Was it? Or
Yeah,
did he get cut? I think he got cut.
He got cut.
No, that was Bryce
above his
Mitchell.
eye. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Bryce Mitchell. He got a nasty cut. So we'll see if he's able to return by December. I hope he does. He wasn't able to get a 4-0 this year, but I think he'll get to 4-1 this year.
Yeah, 100%. As you said there, he was 3-0 in 2020 coming to this fight, and then dropped this fight, and he's 3-1 in 2020. That's still impressive though. 4 fights in 2020, 3 wins and 1 loss. You can't complain really.
Yeah, I think Thiago Moises might be getting a ranked opponent next.
Yeah, that's perfect way of putting it. Beat Michael Johnson, beat Bobby Green, 2 really highly credible names in his resume already in his short UFC career. But moving on to the next fight, we saw Kevin Holland. This one was a bit of a weird one. No one really knew what happened when the finish of the fight actually came. Kevin Holland versus Charlie Ontineros. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Kevin Holland was clearly the bigger fighter. He was the stronger fighter. He was a more physically impressive fighter because he's a middleweight and Charlie Ontiveros is not, which you could see at the beginning of the fight. Charlie Ontiveros was the quicker fighter. Those kicks were really throwing Kevin Holland off guard. He said he didn't want to be on the feet with him, so he went and took him down and dominated him. And one of those slams was nasty enough to, I believe, to injure his neck a little. I know he's 100%, but I don't know what happened there with his neck, but I do know that he kept on screaming, "My neck, my neck."
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they fell down to the canvas, and something went wrong with his neck. And hopefully he is okay now, I believe. And hopefully we can see him get a speedy recover. Because in that first minute or so, they were standing on the feet, and he actually looked really, really good on the feet. He came out with a wide stance, and it was like a taekwondo or karate. I mean, a karate background. He looked really wide on his feet, and he looked really good. His kicks came out of nowhere. And his kicks were really quick, and as you said there, probably catched Kevin Holland off guard, and he probably wanted what word am I looking for? No, didn't want to be on the feet
No
with
part
Charlie.
of it.
Yeah, didn't want no part of being on the feet with Charlie.
Yeah,
Took him down and showed that he's a versatile fighter, and took him down and did some ground and pound, and unfortunately they fell on his neck, and that stopped the fight. Greg Hardy
yeah,
versus
Holland.
what's that? Sorry.
Oh, I was about to say, last week's Oscars lock of the night last week was Kevin Holland by first round knockout. It's almost correct. I don't know if you can consider that a TKO or submission, but I called it. Moving on.
Oh, moving on. Yep, Greg Hardy versus Maurice Green. We saw in the first half of this fight, Greg Hardy was wrestling Maurice Green, and I did not expect this whatsoever. I thought Maurice Green would have the more capable wrestling to kind of stuff Greg Hardy's takedowns, and it was absolutely baffling me that Greg Hardy was, controlling Maurice Green on the ground. I couldn't believe it. But, it shows how impressive Greg Hardy's getting nowadays. He's improving heavily so quickly, and he's improving that he's proven to everyone else that he's not just a one-dimensional fighter. He took Maurice to the ground and pounded him, but I don't think we saw don't think we saw a submission attempt from Greg. I think it was just more of controlling him on the ground and pounding him. But yeah, then they were both after that round one. There was a lot of wrestling going on, but the big boys, they were knackered coming into round two. You could see it. They were both breathing heavy, and this set up a disaster for Maurice Green. Eventually gets a power jabbed to the face and gets knocked down, and then Greg Hardy finishes the fight. How good did Greg Hardy look?
Greg Hardy clearly needed that inhaler in between rounds, but unfortunately it wasn't with him. But it wasn't necessary against a guy with another bad like in Maurice Green. Maurice Green's chin is not the best, and besides he got knocked down. And we can see that Maurice Green is not the athlete that Greg Hardy is. Greg Hardy was once in the NFL, and you can see how athletic he is. Unfortunately, he started too late in his life. He's now in his 30s, and maybe if he started at 20, we could be seeing a future world champion, but that's not the case here, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. If he started his MMA career earlier on instead of going to the NFL, we could have seen a really top contender in the heavyweight division. But then we saw Bryce Mitchell at 145 pounds get his really first competitive test in his MMA career against Andre Philly, a guy who's been in there with the best of the best. And Bryce Mitchell made himself, and showed that to the world that he's no joke. He's a guy that people should be watching and paying attention to. What did Bryce Mitchell show you that night?
Bryce Mitchell showed me that he can face adversity on the feet and still win the fight. Andre Philly, I believe he took the second round, was it? And Bryce Mitchell, he went back in the third round and took him down. He was taken down at ease. His wrestling has improved substantially. And I was surprised he couldn't tap him. I expected a quick submission.
Sorry guys, about what just happened. We lost connection. He's in America, I'm in England. It's going to happen sometimes, but we're trying to work our way around it. We stopped recording, now we're back. But the question I was asking Oscar was is Anderson Silva retiring? There was a bit of question marks coming to this fight. What are your thoughts?
I think Anderson Silva is 100% done in the UFC, but unfortunately, in MMA, he has unfinished business. Because that's just the kind of guy he is. We saw him sit down after his interview and tell everybody, I just can't tell you this is my last MMA fight, because there's a lot of things that go into the decision of retiring. I guess we saw Habib, he's having a difficult decision retire. He's having a tough time being able to tell if he's going to retire. It's a hard decision to make, but It's better to stop early than late, and I think right now it's late, and he needs to retire.
Yeah, that's a great point there. It's better to stop early and then carry on throughout your career and taking unnecessary damage, absorbing too many strikes, and getting CTE. We've seen it in so many fighters, and taking too much damage in their career, and unfortunately they paid the price for it as their life has gone on. I don't want to see that Anderson Silva. He's one of the greats, the one on, if not one of the greatest, or it probably is the greatest in MMA. And you don't want to see someone like that, take too many damage. And unfortunately, in the Uriah Hall fight, he took some damage and he got knocked out, and he paid the price for it. In the first and second round, he looked very competitive, but the third, fourth, it kind of took over.
Yeah, his chin isn't there anymore. The punches he would have avoided and countered with, it's not happening anymore. The first MMA fight I actually watched was that Silva Weidman rematch with Ronda and was it Misha Tate in the co-main event, and that was the first MMA fight I ever saw back in 2013, and that lets you know just how old Anderson Silva is. Back in 2013, we thought he was going to reclaim that belt from Weidman. That didn't happen, and ever since he's never been the same.
Yeah, you're the exact same as me. I kind of saw Anderson Silva retire this weekend in the UFC anyway. But he was the first fight I ever watched. I think we've shared this to each other. The first fight I ever watched was UFC. I can't remember the day. Oh my god, I think it might be. I can't get it. I've got 124 in my head, but I don't think it is.
Who was his opponent?
Vitor Belfort.
Oh yeah, I couldn't tell you that.
It was Vitor Belfort. It was in 2011. I remember the day and everything. 126. There we go. UFC 226 in 2011 when he hit him with that the front kick down the middle and finished it off. And we saw if you watched the Contender Series, there was that was like a little bit of a tribute to Anderson Silva. That was incredible.
Yeah, there was a double front kicks, and then there was a clean front kick. It was an Anderson Silva tribute night.
Yeah,
I think Anderson Silva, he'll probably end up in Bellator.
I would like to see him go to Bellator. Kind of end off his career. More comfortable, not less competitive as Bellator. Is not a less competitive version of the UFC. They don't have too many top fighters over there. They're known for their lesser competition, but he's still going to get tested over there. They've got some really great old fighters over there.
Yeah, they also don't have USADA knocking on his door at 6 a.m. So maybe that might be a little more convenient for him.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the recap of the UFC Hall versus Silva. We saw Silva, in his last UFC fight, get knocked out against Uriah Hall, and he said if he won this fight, he probably would have stayed in the UFC. But unfortunately, he did get knocked out, and it's probably the last we saw of Anderson Silva.
Yeah, I actually got this exactly correct once again. 4th round KO, I called it.
Mystic Oscar, he predicts these things.
Yeah. There's no alliteration we can use for but whatever.
Oh yeah, let me. We'll try and think of one. We'll get back to you next week.
Yeah, next week I'll have something.
Yeah. Well, moving on to UFC Fight Night this weekend, Santos versus Teixeira. It's a really great card, and we're here to break it down. Give us our predictions. First fight of the evening, we've got Gustavo Lopez versus Anthony Burchak. I don't know too much about these guys, but Gustavo Lopez, 11-5 in his pro MMA career. In his first fight in the UFC, he came in against Merab Dvalishvili, and he lost a unanimous decision that night. And that's no loss that you shouldn't be ashamed of. Merab Dvalishvili, is a really highly credible guy. Just beat John Dodson, a guy that's going up to this, gonna be one of the top contenders in the UFC one day. And Anthony Burchak, 15-6 in his UFC career. He fought not his UFC career, 56 in his MMA career. He fought for the UFC ages ago, in 2016 to be exact. He did alright in the promotion. Came in against Ian Whistle. He got knocked heel hooked in that fight, but he beat Joe Soto and Dillian Lopez. Then after that, he got cut, but he did lost to Thomas Almeida. He got knocked out in the first round in 2015. Before Thomas Almeida fought Cody Garbrandt, that was. everything went downhill for Thomas Almeida after that fight against Cody Garbrandt. And but yeah, he fought in the UFC back in the day in 2014, went 2-2 in the promotion, got cut in 2016, and then went to Ryzen, went 0-3 in Ryzen, and then went to Combate. You know, won some fights in Combate in LFA in Championship, and now he's back after 4 years, back in the UFC, fighting Gustavo Lopez. How do you see his fight going?
Yeah, this is going to be a close fight, but I think Burchak has the skills to do it. I think we might be seeing a submission from him. Who knows?
Yeah, 100%. I don't. If I was going to choose one, I'd probably go with Anthony Burchak. You know, he's got UFC experience already. You know, been in there, beat Joe Soto. Joe Soto was a former UFC title challenger, and we'll see him probably end up getting the win this night. Moving on, Max Griffin versus some of these names. You know, I got to ask my friend Oscar to pronounce them. Max Griffin, who's he facing?
He's facing old Brahimaj.
Oh, Ramses Brahimaj. Yeah.
Brahimaj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you see this fight going?
Griffin has fought the who's who of the welterweight division. Even has a win over Mike Perry. I think the experience in the octagon will lead him to the victory. Brahimaj is coming out the Contender Series. He looked very impressive there, but I don't think it's enough to get it done against someone who has a 4-inch reach advantage on him.
100% you said there. Max Griffin fought the who's who in the welterweight division. In his first fight in the UFC career, he got tasked with Colby Covington. In his first UFC fight at UFC 202, they squared him up against Colby Covington. You know, we didn't really know who he was back then, but we know how good he is now, Colby Covington. One of the top 3 in the world, ranked number 1 or 2 in the world, I think, at the moment in the welterweight division.
Yeah, he's number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah, number 1.
Exactly. So there's no shame in that loss. You know, he's fought fighters like Alessio Sikowski, Curtis Millender, Thiago Alves, Alex Morono, Alex Oliveira, Cowboy in his last fight. He's fought so many names in a welterweight division in his short UFC career already. But you know, he's fought some really good names, and he's got some wins over some decent. As you said there, Mike Perry. That's a really good win. You know, a highly name as well. Mike Perry has a lot of hype. I don't know. I want to say hype. A lot of fans around him. You know, his hype's kind of gone now, but he's just got fans. You know, and he's a very entertaining guy. When he fights, you know, he kind of brings it. And as you said, Ramzan Brahimaj. You know, he's an LFA veteran. You know, he's fought in the LFA for years, and he's got 2 losses, and his 2 losses did come at LFA against Justin Patterson and Evan Cutts. And we will see him make his UFC debut this weekend against Max Griffin.
Yeah, Max Griffin, he should get it done by a unanimous decision.
100% I agree. I think the experience from Max Griffin, you know, he's been in there with the best of the best, and I do think it'll prevail. Returning Damage Elkins will be facing Eduardo Garagori. Oh, that one's a difficult one to pronounce. I'll ask my friend Oscar. He'll pronounce it very well.
Yeah, Garagori. Garagori has power, but not enough to put away someone who's proven he's very durable in Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins, he got that win over Mirsad Bektic, one of the greatest comebacks of all time. And unfortunately, he's on a losing streak right now, but he's lost to really good guys. If you look at his record, guys like Ryan Hall, guys like Alexander Volkanovski, those are the kind of guys that beat Darren Elkins. And Darren Elkins is very durable. I think he's gonna wrestle him this fight, and if he's smart, he'll wrestle him. He actually has the most time in top position in featherweight history. Shout out to Numbers MMA on Instagram.
And so, yeah, as you said there, he has a loss against Alexander Volkanovski, which snapped a 6-fight win streak heading into that fight. You know, it was a guy who was on a win streak when he went into the Volkanovski's fight. Had some really good got confidence heading into that fight, and Volkanovski, you know, drained it. And now we know how good Volkanovski is. You know, he's a 145-pound champion at the moment. You know, he's beaten the likes of Chad Mendes, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway twice. And, you know, after that fight, you know, he lost to Ricardo Lamas, Ryan Hall, and his last fight, he lost against Nate Landmere. And in this fight, I do believe, as you said there, he has the power, Eduardo, but he ain't going to have enough power to put away Darren Elkins. You know, Darren Elkins, takes the punches, keeps walking forward. And you have to have a lot of power to take this guy out. and I feel like he will take the floor to the fight to the mat, and we'll see him use his wrestling and probably edge out a unanimous decision.
Yeah, I agree.
And the next fight of the evening, we saw an impressive Alexander Romanov in his UFC debut for Rocky Martinez, and we saw him won by on triangle choke in round 2. This guy looks very impressive in his UFC debut. He looked like he can be a really serious contender in the UFC, and he's got a stiff test in front of him. A veteran, a guy he's been in the UFC for quite a bit now. And Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, a guy who's been coming off a win, I do believe. Yeah, fought Ben Sassoli in 2020. You know, Ben Sassoli is now in prison. Whoops.
Yep.
So yeah, he fought Ben Sassoli in February 22nd, and you know he won that fight in his Ben Sassoli's native country in Australia, I do believe. Yeah, it was UFC on ESPN Plus 26. Felder versus Hooker, you know, knocked him out in his home country, and now he's facing he's got a very good prospect in front of him in Alexander Romanov. You know, who do you think is going to take this fight?
I think Romanov will dominate. Rogerio de Lima is a light heavyweight. He's fighting up at heavyweight. He has a lot of power. We saw that in his last fight, but Romanov is undefeated. This guy he's a force of nature. This guy all finishes. In his last fight, we saw him dominate Martinez and then eventually submit him. He'll do that again this time.
Yeah, 100%. I just said there, 12 fights in his MMA career, 12 finishes. You know, he's a finisher, and he's a big boy as well. And he's just there. Marcos is a 205-pounder, and Alexander Romanov, you know, he's a really big heavyweight, and we will see him use his all that weight advantage that he will have in there that night, and he'll probably end up winning that fight. I see him taking it down to the ground quite quick. And probably end up getting a submission, or maybe knocking him out. I think Romanov, you know, he's a great fighter. We might experience his power this weekend. He looks in great shape, even though he's a big boy. You know, he looks in great shape.
Yeah, I agree. Romanov, he'll be ranked very soon.
Yeah, 100%. He's a guy that the heavyweights should be paying attention to. Someone who's a very good prospect in that division. A guy who's going to end up being one of the top contenders in the division. But also, while we're talking about top contenders, there's a guy in the 145-pound division that goes the name of Giga Chikadze. A guy that looks incredible. He's a former glory kickboxer in the UFC. He's been looking great as of late. He's on a win streak. Last fight in Omar Morales in a decision. You know, he is a glory kickboxer, but he fights a lot of decisions. If you're betting on a finish this night, I wouldn't.
I actually think a finish is likely this time around. Simmons, he's 6 inches shorter. 6 inches is going to be very a big disadvantage here against someone as good as Chikadze. Chikadze, he's got those leg kicks. He's got those hands. I think he's going to have a highlight reel KO this time around. He's actually my lock of the night. This right here is going to be a walk in the park for Giga Chikadze.
Oh man, walk in the park. Someone quote that. And when we come back next week, let's see if he regrets it.
Yeah, let's not hope he gets knocked out or anything like that.
Trevor Giles versus Bevon Lewis. Bevon Lewis is the guy that he's fought Uriah Hall in the past, but you know, he was winning that fight until the third round. You know, he was in the third round. He was winning the first and the second. Got a little bit tired in the third, and Uriah Hall knocked him out. But you know, we saw Uriah Hall, you know, not really look motivated. But yeah, you know, he got the win that night. But you know, as a guy who we've seen with incredible potential, you know, went in there against Darren Stewart, also lost a unanimous decision, but bounced back with a unanimous decision of his own against Dequan Townsend in the first month of 2020 in January. And you know, hopefully we see him go back-to-back wins against Trevor Giles. But Trevor Giles is no joke. You know, he's got a win over James Krause. Whether it was controversial or not, James Krause is an incredible fighter. And, you know, he's fought the likes of Zach Cummins and Gerald Mershaw, guys that are really, really good. Obviously, we saw Gerald Mershaw recently get knocked out by Khamzat Chimaev, but he's still a credible guy. He's a veteran, crafty veterans. They're gonna find a way to win. Wherever there's a will, there's a way for a veteran. They will find a way to win. And his 2 losses do come by way of submission. So is that a thing that Beaver Noise could probably exploit?
It's possible, but I think this will be contested on the feet. Giles' gas tank is not the best, which is crazy. He fought James Krause. James Krause took that fight on a day's notice, and it looked like their cardio was like in the same place. And Bavon Lewis, he got knocked out by Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall, we know he's pretty good. This fight is very close on paper. The odds makers actually have this at a pick'em. I think Bavon Lewis is the bigger man. He's 3 inches taller. He has 5 inches in reach on him, and I think that'll be the difference maker here. And on the feet, he'll outstrike him.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking at my phone there, but we got some breaking news on the channel right now.
Wow, let me see.
Darren Till
What is it?
is out of his fight against Jack Hermanson.
What a bummer.
But guess who's stepping in on short notice?
Yoel Romero?
Nope.
Uriah Hall?
Nope.
Who is it? All right.
He's just
Tell
fought.
me who it is.
He's just fought. He's 4-0. He's 4-0 in 2020.
Kevin Holland?
Kevin Holland is fighting Jack Hermanson.
You gotta be kidding me.
Oh,
It's Christmas Day.
Yep.
It's Christmas Day for me. I'm a big Kevin Holland fan.
December 5th.
I've been seeing this. Wow, that just made my day.
Darren Till had to put out because of injury.
Wow, I'll post that right after I finish recording.
Man,
That's
incredible.
awesome. Wow, Kevin Holland.
Yeah, my phone was blowing up for a second. I was like, what's going on? And then I quickly looked at some tweets, and I saw Okamoto. Brett Okamoto was the first one to break the news, and he said that Darren Till was out of the fight due to injury. Kevin Holland steps in at December 5th. Wow, incredible.
Wow. Kevin, I feel bad for Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson didn't even want to fight Chris Weidman, who was he's in the top 15 right now. He didn't even want to fight him because he wanted to get on track for a title shot, and now he's got to fight the unranked Kevin Holland, who I think has a real chance. If it's on the feet, I'm picking Kevin Holland to win all day.
Yeah, we'll get into that when it comes to fight day or close to fight day. We'll talk about that. But why we're here, we're going to be talking about UFC Fight Night Santos versus Teixeira. Now we're over that. We're going to have a little bit more buzz around us now. We just got a fight announcement. Jack Hermanson versus Kevin Holland for December 5th. That's official. Darren Till pulled out due to injury, so that's a bit unfortunate. But next fight, Claudia Gadelha versus Jan. I was going to try and pronounce her first name, but I'll call her Jan for this one. Who do you think takes this fight?
I think Jan has all the tools to get this done. I think Claudia Gadelha, she doesn't submit people. That would be her route to victory, but has she done it recently? Nope. In her last fight, I believe she lost to Angela Hill. Angela Hill got a knockdown, I believe, and Angela Hill got robbed that night, in my opinion. And Jan was able to beat Angela Hill, so I think, not to use MMA math here, but I think, we can make a case for that in this situation.
Yeah, 100%. Claudia Gadelha in her first fight in her last fight, for Angela Hill. It was a very controversial decision. Everyone thought Angela Hill earned enough that night. And in my eyes, I think she earned enough that night. She should have walked home with a win. And she didn't. A lot of people thought she got robbed. And I think robbed is a very word that's very overused. I think it was a close fight. But, I think Angela Hill did earn enough that night and should have won the fight.
Yeah, I think Jan only has one loss, which was, I believe it was back in 2010. It was her third professional fight. It was by rear naked choke. Everything else, she's won. This girl is undefeated in the UFC, 5-0, I believe. And what she did to Karolina Kowalkiewicz was unbelievable. She had her crying after the fight. It was an ugly, ugly beating. And I don't think we'll see that here, but I think Claudia is not as good as she used to be. I think we're seeing a little bit of a decline in her ability, and Jan will be very close to a title shot after getting the unanimous decision victory.
100%. I agree. I think she will edge the win that night, and we'll see her move on in the rankings and push for a top 5 contender in the strawweight division. Next up, we got Ian Highness versus Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen's a guy that came in with a lot of hype around him, beating Kevin Holland, who's now fighting Jack Manson. And he's beat Tom Breeze, he's beat Carl Dorcas, and Dorcas. That's a bit of a difficult one to pronounce. But now he's got Ian Highness, a ranked guy at 185 pounds, and Ian Highness as well. He's no joke. He's beat Joe Mershart in his last fight. He lost against Derek Brunson, lost against Omar Akhmedov. But he's beat Cesar Ferreira. He's beat Antonio Carlos Jr. He's beat some really good guys in the UFC in his short UFC career. He only got signed to the UFC in 2018, and he's ranked already. He's a guy which shot up to stardom straight away from the Contender Series and went up there and went into the rankings straight off the bat. And now we see him taking on Brendan Allen, who's a young, hungry guy. And who do you think is going to take the fight?
I think this is a close fight, but Brendan Allen is going to be able to win it because of his jiu-jitsu. His jiu-jitsu looked really great last time, but Kyle Dawkins was another black belt, so he wasn't able to submit him. But Brendan Allen, he's on a 5-fight winning streak. I forgot who we lost to before that. Might have been it was Anthony Hernandez, I think.
Yeah, that's
Anthony
correct.
Hernandez.
LFA 32, yeah. Anthony Hernandez in 2018, and then before that it was Eric Anders.
Yeah, and since then we've seen big improvements for Brendan Allen. His striking's great. His jiu-jitsu it's amazing. I think we're gonna see this kid. We're gonna see him ranked and eventually in a title fight because that's just how good he is.
Yep, I was looking at his losses here. His first loss was against Trevor Giles, second Eric Anders, and the third loss was against Anthony Hernandez. All them losses, there's no shame in them.
Yeah, so, I think Ian Highness he's smaller. He's 5'11". Maybe he could make welterweight. He's a little bit of a smaller middleweight, and I think in his last couple fights where he lost to Omari Akhmedov and Derek Brunson, he got overpowered by those guys, and I think Brendan Allen can do the same thing. He's 6'2", and he has all the tools to dominate him on the ground. And I think we're looking at a third round submission from Brendan Allen here.
Precise predictions, I love it. As you said there, Ian Highness, not the biggest of middleweights. Coming into this fight, Brendan Allen 6'2", Ian Highness 5'11". 72-inch reach advantage. Not reach advantage, but 72-inch reach for Ian Highness. And on the other hand, we got Brendan Allen with a 75 reach advantage. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage over Ian Highness. That's something what could pay dividends. In this, we see Ian Highness land 3.62 significant strikes land per minute. And on the other hand, that's one. We see Brendan Allen land 2.67. We're going to see Ian Highness busy on the feet, and but could we see a takedown from Brendan Allen? It's probably most likely, and we'll probably end up seeing a submission. In my eyes, I think we'll see Brendan Allen pull out a submission in this fight against Ian Highness, and he will move on, and we'll see him improve his career, and we'll see him get a highly ranked opponent maybe.
Yeah, I agree. Brendan Allen, I think he might be a future champion. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, after this fight, we do have a bit of a weird one on the main event. Third fight before the main event of the evening. We've got Rani Barcelos versus Kelahad Taha.
Yeah, this card placement is a little confusing. You got someone, Claudia Gadelha, that low on the card. It's kind of weird. But I think Barcelos, he's the more skilled fighter. I think he's coming in on short notice here, but I think he's still going to perform better on that night, and he'll get a unanimous decision victory.
Yep, as Khalid Taha was scheduled to fight Jack Shaw that night, and Jack Shaw had to pull out. I can't remember the reason. So it probably was due to injury, but now he faces Rani Barcelos in this fight, and 15-1 in his MMA career. And I think he's beat in his last fight. He edged out a unanimous decision versus Said Nurmagomedov, and that guy is incredible. We've seen that, how good he is in the UFC, and I do feel he has the more tools in this fight, and I do see him winning this fight fairly comfortably.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, co-main event of the evening, Andrei Arlovsky. He's still fighting, ladies and gentlemen. He's trying to avoid that 20th defeat, 29-19 in his MMA career. Absolutely incredible. And he's facing Canadian Tanner Bosa, a guy who's been surging as of late, beating some really good guys, and now he's got a stiff veteran, a crafty veteran in front of him, Andrei Arlovsky. How does this fight go?
Yeah, the last two fights have 41-year-olds in them. I'm not mad at it. Those guys can continue as long as they want, as far as I'm concerned. Arlovsky, it's kind of shocking that he hasn't been knocked out, considering he's been knocked out back in his debut. He got knocked out cold in his first fight. And shout out to the Run It Back MMA podcast. Those guys, they said that the guy that knocked him out in his first fight ended up going to some kind of mental hospital and escaping. It's a wild story. Check those guys out. Anyway, I think Arlovsky's chin is actually held up in his last couple of fights. If you look at that Ben Rothwell fight, he was taking a lot of shots, and he was actually taking them quite well. And I think this might happen again. But Boser, he's actually been knocking guys out recently, so I think that'll be what happens here. I think we're looking at a second round TKO for Tanner Boser. Boser, he lost to Gon, but Gon's no joke. Gon is 6-0. He's already ranked. He's fighting Jundo Santos coming up, but Boser, I think he's already ranked. He might already be ranked, and he'll get the win here by the second round TKO.
100%, I agree. I think Tanner Boser, as you said, as of late, been knocking guys out. In his last two fights, he knocked out Rafael Pessoa, and before that he knocked out Felipe Lins, who Andrei Arlovsky just beat. And Tanner Boser did that as well in more impressive fashion. Round one, knocked him out clean. And in the second, I remember that it was his hands. He's quite a small heavyweight, but he's really, really quick.
Yeah, he said I'll never move down to light heavyweight because the cut would damage my body, and the speed here at heavyweight is a big deal, and I have that, so I'll stay at heavyweight. I think Tanner Boser, if you want to put him in your betting parlay, I wouldn't be mad at you, because this guy's he's gonna win this fight for sure, because I think Arlovsky. What is Arlovsky motivated by? The guy just said the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. How about you say that in 2011, where you were possibly going to get a title shot? He got knocked out by Stipe. It's not happening, man. But let's not forget the guys that have knocked him out recently were Ngannou and Rosenstrike. Anybody gets knocked out on those guys. Anybody. But I think Arlovsky, he can hang around a little longer, but Boser should get it done here.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think Boser's going to go in there and probably end up knocking Andrei Arlovsky out.
Yeah, I agree.
Main events of the evening, we see Thiago Santos returning over, I think, nearly 500 days since his last fight against John Jones at UFC 239. He lost a split decision that night, and that. If you see that, you think, wow, a split decision against John Jones. We've never seen many of them. Yeah, I can't remember the last one who took John Jones to a split decision. Not even Dominic Reyes in his last fight. John Jones didn't. That wasn't even a split decision. This is one of the closest fights that we've seen John Jones in a while. Someone thought Thiago Santos beat John Jones in that fight.
Yeah, Thiago Santos, I don't think he beat John Jones. I think the judges, I don't know what they were seeing that night. I think John Jones fought that fight like a fool. He said he wanted to beat Thiago at his own game, so he stayed on the feet with him rather than wrestling him like he easily could have done. But I think Thiago Santos versus that version of John Jones, will it be the same version that we see this weekend? I don't know. His leg is destroyed, and he's coming back from that surgery. He tore everything, all his CLs, the AMCL, the PCL. He tore everything. It was just muscle that was holding that leg together. And Glover Teixeira, he's not really a kicker like that. I think Glover Teixeira has a real shot at here. I don't know why he's that big of an underdog. He's like a plus 240 underdog right now. And I think Glover has a real chance here. But Tiago, if he looks like he looked in that John Jones fight, we're probably going to see a finish from Tiago, let's say in the fourth round.
100%. I agree. In Glover's last fight against Anthony Smith, in the round 5, we saw him take out Anthony Smith by ground and pound. But in the first round, the second round, we saw Glover in a lot of trouble. You know, when Anthony Smith was fresh and he was quick, he was sharp. And if he comes in like that against Thiago, he's going to get caught because Thiago's got bombs. Thiago's got power in them hands. You know, Anthony Smith doesn't possess the same amount of power as Santos does. And if he comes in, starts off slow against Thiago Santos, as he did against Anthony Smith, I do see him getting knocked out in the very first round.
Yeah, I think Glover Teixeira, his jiu-jitsu, it's been very effective. If you saw that fight with Carl Robinson, with Misa Serkinov, with Jimmy Crute, all those guys, he was able to control them on the ground, either ground and pound or get a submission. And he might be doing that to Thiago Santos if Thiago Santos isn't on his A game.
Yeah, well that's it from us, isn't it? That's us from us. We'll quickly recap Glover versus Santos.
Who do you think is going to win the main event though?
Thiago Santos.
Oh, all right.
So we'll move on to our MMA news section. So after Uriah Hall, during the actual broadcast, they announced that Islam Makhachev will fight at RDA at November 14th. That's an incredible fight, and I'm glad Islam's got a really good opponent. And RDA's been struggling as of late at welterweight, dropped down to 155 pounds. Hopefully he can make that cut. Yeah, and once you're a bigger division, it gets harder and harder to cut down, and hopefully he doesn't have to deplete himself so much.
Yeah, I think that's a bad matchup for Dos Santos. He's been losing to these wrestlers as of late. That'll be a fun fight.
Yeah. We got Abu Razak Al Hassan. He's fighting Chaos Williams.
Oh.
Yeah, that guy.
There's no way. There's no way that's not a crazy knockout or a fight of the night. There's no way.
In his last fight, unfortunately, he gassed out and he lost the fight. But before that, he knocked out Nico Price.
Yep, that's a big deal.
In like 18 seconds, I believe. It was came up straight out the bat and just knocked him out.
Yeah, Chaos Williams. Chaos Williams looks so scary in his last fight against Alex Morono at UFC 247.
Yeah, we talked about Jacardze versus Simmons. That got announced this week, so we'll skip that one. We'll talk about Mike Perry versus Tim Means.
Oh, Tim Means, Tim Means, he's hanging around. He loses, he wins. He loses, he wins. In this Mike Perry fight, I don't think he'll win. Mike Perry, if he's on his A game, we're going to see a lot of great stuff from him. He can mix it up with the takedowns. He's got real good power. I think we'll see a second round TKO for Mike Perry.
I agree. I think Mike Perry's just a different level in his career at the moment. Tim Means, as you said there, getting wins, dropping wins, getting wins. When he got knocked out versus Nico Price, he broke his ankle, I believe. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that was a nasty win. He was actually winning that fight against Nico.
Yeah, and then he got knocked
but when
out.
he advances, he gets caught.
Yeah, 100%. Now we got Caitlin Chikagian returning really quickly after she got finished by Jessica Andrade. She will be fighting Cynthia Calvillo on November 21st. How's that fight?
This is kind of a coin toss fight in my opinion. I really don't know who's winning this one. Both girls are pretty well rounded, but what I've seen recently from Cynthia Calvillo it's been great. She was able to go 5 rounds with Jessica I just dominate her. And let's not forget, I has a win over Chookagian. I think Calvillo probably gets the split decision. This is going to be a split decision for sure.
Yep, I agree 100%. Everything you're saying, is correct in my opinion. 100%. And next one. Amanda Rebus, she's finally getting a shot at the big girls in the 115-pound division. She's facing Michelle Waterson. Oh.
Wow, this is Amanda Hebus has risen quite quickly. I think people were hyping her up a little too much after the win over Paige Van Zandt. Let's not forget Paige Van Zandt is far from elite. You know, she's in BKFC now, but Amanda Hebus, we know she's good everywhere on the feet. That fight with Mackenzie Dern revealed a lot about her to me, because Mackenzie Dern is as good as you get on the ground, and so is Hebus. So they canceled each other out on the ground. So on the feet, they fought, and Hebus looked miles ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk about one more fight before we go. The Argentinian Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's back versus Muslim Salikov.
Ponzinibbio is one of my favorite fighters. He was on a big win streak before he had that whole injury. He was pulling out of fights. It's not been easy for Ponzinibbio since he had to leave active competition. I think that fight with Neil Magny showed us a lot about him. He got that knockout in the 4th round. He's got good cardio. He's got excellent power. And Muslim Salikov, it's either do or die for him right now. Like he's a little past his prime, in my opinion. I don't think he'll be ranked. Ponzinibbio said he'll take anyone. In my opinion, put him in there with Colby Covington for give him a title shot. This guy's on a win streak. Like, stop disrespecting this guy. I think he deserves it more than Leon Edwards. He was on a big win streak, but he got kicked out of the rankings due to inactivity. I really want to see big things in this guy's future. I think we'll see him fight for the belt
100%.
after he wins.
A 7-fight win streak, as you mentioned there.
Yeah, I think that win streak is better than Leon Edwards, is my opinion.
Yeah, beating Gunnar Nelson, beating Mike Perry, beating Neil Magny, beating Nordine Taleb, Zach Cummins, Court McGee. You know, he's beat some really good names in that win streak and finished most of them.
Yeah, he's got. I think I actually would be intrigued to see him and Leon Edwards fight in case of Leon Edwards having to pull out of that fight with Chimaev, because of course there's a lockdown going down in the UK right now. I don't know if he'll be able to leave the country.
Yeah, 100%. Khamzat Chimaev versus Leon Edwards. That's a brilliant fight. We'll get to that one when we get to it. It's coming up shortly.
Yeah. Also, Canelo might be fighting on that night too, but I won't be watching. I'll just look at the highlights afterwards.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Canelo is now a free agent apparently.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Apparently, they wanted him to fight either Khabib or Masvidal.
Who? Canelo?
Yeah. DAZN said those are the 2 biggest fights ahead of you, Khabib or Masvidal.
Oh my god. That's incredible.
I think we'll see the Masvidal fight. I can almost guarantee it.
Really?
Yeah, I think he actually mentioned Masvidal by name after that knockout of Ben Askren. He said it makes sense money wise, but in terms of competition, it's not up there for me. But in terms of money fight, it makes sense.
100%. Well, that's the end of the podcast number 2. I thank you all for watching, and thanks from a goodbye from Lenny March and a goodbye from Oscar. So thank you very much for joining me, Oscar, again, and we'll see you in episode 3 next week when we talk about the fights what happened this weekend, and we'll talk about the fights what's going to happen. Thank you very much.
All right, for those watching on YouTube, this podcast is available on many podcast platforms. I launched it using the Anchor app. The Anchor app was able to distribute it to apps like Spotify and to Stitcher. I think this podcast will be successful in the future. Right now, we're evolving, we're getting better, and I really hope you listen to next week's and the week after's. Have a good time watching the fights this weekend.
Couldn't have been better myself. Thank you very much, and have a good fight, a good weekend of fights watching this weekend. Thank you very much, Oscar, and we'll see you next week.
All right, you too. Have a great weekend, guys.
Have a great weekend. Goodbye.